everyone, Molweni Sanbanani Rialocha. My name is Olisam Dugaza, born and bred in Mafikeng, but now residing in Bloemfontein, attending the Rocklands congregation. As you know, we've taken up the Dare to Care challenge, and for this reason, we've compiled for you an awesome message from our brothers and sisters in the Apostle area. Before we get into that, we have a welcoming message from our dear Apostle Swartboy.
Dear young people, dear friends, dear brothers and sisters, as part of this exciting weekend for our young people, we decided on a virtual presentation with the topic Life After Matric. The objectives for this presentation are simply one, to broaden the educational horizons, and two, to show that you can pursue your career and still make a contribution in the Lord's work. Then what was done was the committee that put this presentation together, they sourced local content, approached brothers and sisters in the area to tell us their story. And the whole idea behind everything is they telling us their story, how they pursued their career and still make a small contribution in the Lord's work. And by looking at this virtual presentation, we trust that it would at least trigger a thought process in this direction. They telling us their story, and we hope in a few years' time, you would be telling us your story as a result of this presentation. I wish you a thought-provoking experience. Everything of the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Apostle. Without wasting any time, let's cross over to the various interviews. Sit back and enjoy the session.
Hi, I am Jolene Valentine from Abbottines of Congregation. I'm a third-year student studying to be a teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was 7 years old. It is my passion and I enjoy working with children and I'm patient with them. Therefore, I know that this is what I meant to do. What motivated me even more was when I was in Matric and I needed to make sure this is what I wanted to do. So back when I was still in Homework Congregation, I became a Sunday school teacher and I knew, yes, this is what I want to do and I meant to do it. It's my passion. I am studying at Soplaki University. I was advised that if studying to be a teacher, this varsity has the best lectures for teaching. Since COVID started last year, the varsity had to change to online classes. It was the real challenge for me and I had to adapt. I missed being surrounded by my fellow students, being in class, and being around other people. Now, the varsity does provide the students with data and everything, so that wasn't really a problem. But the problem was to remain focused with all the distractions here at home. So I had to adapt and discipline myself. I had to put my phone one side when it was time for class and when it was time for me to do my schoolwork. What drives me is the practicals that I have to do every single year. I look forward to it. It makes my year, it makes my day. I enjoy it a lot. So knowing that after I graduate and look for work, then I will be teaching, and that with that in mind, it really it motivates me because I enjoy it. Like I said, I enjoy it and I love working with children. I prioritize by planning and good time management. It helps me to be updated with my studies and gives me time to focus on my studies and focus on my spiritual life and family life and social life. What in my experience, I have found that the more I pray and just being closer to God, everything else in my life just seems to fall into place, or it's just I am able to deal with problems if they arise somehow. So that's how I prioritize. Advice I would give is to just plan and have good time management. In my experience, that helps a lot. It helps me to be updated with my schoolwork and gives me time to relax and enjoy myself and enjoy things that I love doing. So that helps me a lot, and that helps me to live a balanced life. So if I were to give advice, I'd say plan every day and what you're gonna do every day or every month, and just have good time management, and then you'll have time to do everything you want to do. Thank you.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. This is Preston Mfaze from Khalishu South. I am a teacher at Emma Moho. Life after Matric was very difficult, but with the grace of Almighty God, I managed to finish my studies. And then I completed my Matric in 1985. From there, I took a break in 1986. And then in 1989, I started now to study my BA degree with Vista University. After these 3 years, I managed now to continue my studies with UNISA, University of South Africa, for 2 years while I was working at Inusing Primary School. From there, I obtained my B.Ed honors with University of Free State in the year 1997. And therefore now I worked very hard, but now after that I managed to get the work at Emma Moho, where I am a teacher there as well as then after being a teacher, I became a deputy principal. Now I'm saying to the matriculants, they must work very hard, but now for them to become successful, they must include Almighty God in their studies so that now they become successful. Thank you.
My name is James Besaidnot. I am the rector of Postmasburg Congregation, and I'm a geologist. Why I chose this career did not happen naturally, and it also was not my first choice. How it happened was, firstly, I did not go to study immediately after Matric, but due to financial constraints, I went to work after Matric. I only got the opportunity to study after working for about 12 years in different fields. The company that I worked for at that stage advertised various positions for workers to go and study and qualify themselves and come back and work for the company. I had a short list of about 3 careers, of which are engineering, geology, and safety management. I could not choose between these careers, so I prayed and asked God for guidance. And we had about 2 weeks to apply before the deadline. And the last Sunday before the deadline, which was on the Monday, I received the answer on my prayer, and I applied, and that's how it started. The fact that God was involved and showed me what career I should choose motivated me, and also the fact that I wanted to better myself and to qualify myself to better provide for my family. That motivated me as well. The best part of my job is the fact that I can contribute to the sustained operation of my company. What my team do is that we ensure that while every year millions of tons are mined, we continuously add new ore so the mine can continue mining without running out of ore. The hardest part of my job is when people are retrenched and lose their job, and to see that happen. The challenges that I faced while studying was the adjustment to student life after so many years since leaving school. The sacrifices that I had to make was that I was married with a child and went to university about 500 kilometers away, full time at the age of 31. I had to leave my family behind and only saw them on holidays and focus on my studies as best as possible. How do I prioritize between my job, my family, social life, and church life? That's a hard one because I struggle with this. I suppose the priorities shift over time. First, my work had the higher priority, and as I grew older, my family and my church became more important. Also, my task in the church and congregation demands its own focus. I would advise students to make God part of their decisions and plans. Be of the mindset that whatever we do for God. And when He is satisfied with me, everyone and everything around me will be blessed. When you choose your future path, don't be influenced by material desires, but rather by what you can contribute to society. Thanks you.
Good day, dear young people, dear brothers, dear sisters. I'm Alfred April from the congregation of Katu in the Kuruman district. I serve here as a priest, a rector, and a district rector. But by daytime, I'm a mining engineer, and in my daily job, I specialized as a mine planning engineer. And I've been doing this since I've completed my studies in 2003. So why mining engineering? Working for a big mining company, I was afforded the opportunity to study mining engineering. And then I was also interested and fascinated by the big trucks and the impressive blasts in mining. Mining is actually a very diverse field with open cast or underground mining, various commodities and various styles of mining. So it is one of the most diverse fields of engineering you can find. So the best part of my job as a mining engineer specializing in mine planning, it is doing the scenario testing, and ultimately this will inform the company on what is the best way forward in terms of profitability, in terms of safety, in terms of the lowest risk, and having a meaningful impact on the company and the mining as a business. The hardest part is, like as in most companies, you have little time to deliver the work you need to deliver. So that is always the problem. When it's crunch time, there's no real time for anything else. It is just making sure that you deliver on. Challenges I've had while studying, firstly, it was tough being away from the family, putting in all the hours, the assignments, studying for tests and exams. And that can also be quite tough, but once you find your strength still in the work of God, I've seen that really helps a lot to be involved in the young people's activities, in other activities in the work of God. We have fellowship, and then you have perspective again that God has a long-term plan for us, eternal salvation. So that really is important as well. That takes me to why and how do I prioritize the job, family, social life, and also church life. The job, always you spend a lot of time at work, you do it for your family, but also we must never let it impact on our ability to serve God, to live ourselves out in His work, and to contribute to His work in our way with the talents and the gifts that God has placed within us. So for me, it is really about making sure that the job knows its place, and then making sure that God and what we do for Him takes priority above all else. So the advice that I can give to you as students, you are in a very challenging part of your life now, where studies dominates your existence, and then also at sometimes you feel like you are maybe the only one in class that do not understand certain things. Well, I can assure you there are others that also do not understand. So never be afraid to put your hand up and ask the question until you are satisfied that you do understand. And then also, secondly, I want to encourage you, never give up. At times it's tough, you might fail a test here and there, and you might feel like a failure. But that is not the end. You have to pick yourself up, try again. Picture yourself reaching that success. And then never opt for failure. God bless you in this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So good afternoon. My name is Chantal Witten. I attend Bloemfontein Congregation, and I am currently employed at the University of the Free State. I'm a dietitian by profession, but currently I work in the division Health Science Education. And as such, I am training the lecturers on how to be professional educators in the field of health sciences. Well, when I went to university, the first thing that was a challenge was that my parents hadn't actually planned for me to go to university. In fact, my dad's sister was managing a factory. And so the idea was always that I was going to go and work. But it so happened that I firstly got into university, got accepted at university. And the first challenge for my parents was to secure the registration fee, which at the time was, I remember, 550 Rand to register. And so that was a huge sacrifice just on my parents' side, because one, I could have been working and been an earning member of the family. And secondly, going to university was actually money out of their pocket. As you can imagine, paying for transport, paying for books, paying for the little things that we needed at university. So for every family, it is a sacrifice. And for every family, it's an investment into the future. And then obviously as a student, you are sacrificing your time, you're sacrificing your friends, you're sacrificing things that you would want to do because it's taking up time for you to study. And we call that opportunity cost. But I think once you understand that if you make those sacrifices now, you reap the benefits later. And so I would like to think about it not as sacrifices, but actually investments, because now I wouldn't be reaping the investment that I did back then to be Dr. Witten right now in the Faculty of Health Sciences. It's always a juggle. And I think it's very important for each individual to recognize what is a benefit, what is a blessing, and what takes away, which is basically like a loss. So we talk about doing a SWOT analysis. So when it comes to whether you're going to put in time or you're going to put in effort, think about how is this going to benefit me? And so in many forums now, we are learning about mental health and work-life balance and having your home a haven. And so for me, I think the principle of investing in your family first should be a principle. And so I personally try not to work on weekends. I personally try not to work overtime. And so I'm very selfish about my time because I have children and I would like to invest in my children and I'd like to build that relationship with my husband and my children. When it comes to social activities, again, the principle is, will this benefit me? What will I gain out of this? So when I'm trying to build up relationships, it's not just to have a friend, but I also think about, will this friend take me forward or is this friend going to take me backwards? And so it's important for you to also have that clarity about where you're going to use your time wisely, where you're going to use your energy wisely, and is it going to be an investment? And then, of course, when it comes to our spiritual life, the more we invest in our spiritual life, we know that it is going to benefit us in the future. And so, one, good for me that my social life is also my spiritual life. So I don't have to be making choices between whether I'm going to go to church or whether I'm going to go to a party. So for me, my social engagement is also within the church. And so every, I guess, time-wise, in terms of your own contribution financially to the church, that benefits long term. And so for me, that's how I make my decisions. It's the balance between being kind and being harsh. In my job, I'm working with students, and these are postgraduate students. So like I said earlier, I'm training the lecturers in the Faculty of Health Sciences to become professional educators in the field of health science. And so sometimes you want to be kind to the student and do and support the student, but then you must also recognize sometimes students will take advantage of that. And then there's the time where you have to be harsh and you have to be critical and you have to be able to draw the line for the student. And you might come across a little bit harsh to the student. You might come across uncooperative. You might come across as being arrogant. And so there's always that fine balance. But for us, we completely recognize as lecturers that our students are our clients. So it's important for us to invest in good client relationships. And when it comes to developing of research, it's a long-term investment because the students are going to be working with you from 3 years up to 7 years. And so my hardest part for me, and I've only been a year now at the University of the Free State, is to develop that relationship with my students. In my Matric year, we did have something called career guidance, but it was not as formal as our students have now at high school level. So I went with my dear friend to go to the University of the Western Cape to their open day. And we were just milling around looking at what different, careers you could follow, what was the requirements for the different study programs. And then we got drawn into a presentation on working in health sciences. And one of the health sciences was dietetics. And dietetics was actually canvassing to recruit students. And I didn't actually pay attention to the whole dietetics program because I wanted to study social science or anthropology. That really got me going. And then when it came to filling out the forms, I basically copied my friend at school, what she filled out in her form. And so she wrote the first one, BSc Dietetics. And so I also wrote BSc Dietetics, and then I wrote social work. And I think what eventually happened was that I got selected for the BSc Dietetics program. And I didn't know anything about BSc Dietetics. I didn't even know that it was working in hospitals. And so when I went to the orientation program, I said, the dietetic students must come forward. And we were only 8. So it was a very small class. And at that point in time, I thought, you know what? Maybe it's not such a bad thing that I'm in a small class. I tend to also work very nicely in smaller groups rather than in bigger groups because the social sciences were large classes, like hundreds of students in a lecture hall. And so, unfortunately, I didn't make a decision based on the knowledge of the profession. I basically went with the circumstances I was confronted with, and that's how I studied dietetics as my first degree. So I do want to say for the students out there, please do your research. You might just end up in a program that you don't really want to study. For the students that are currently in high school, I really want you to do your homework. Go in, read up on the different programs. Make sure you understand the demands of the program. Because some of the demands of the programs are also not only your competencies and for you to be able to achieve in that program, but they're also additional costs. And I think that you must always bear in mind that you are going to be dependent on your family, on your friends, on loans to be able to do your study. And you want it to be a program that you can complete within the shortest period of time. So when students start their program, if it's a 3-year program, you must finish in 3 years. If it's a 4-year program, you must finish in 4 years. And that's the biggest problem we have right now with our students, that they're not able to finish in the shortest space of time. So it costs more to the family and then also to the university because you're blocking somebody from coming in. So do your homework. The second thing is also do the forecasting of what will be the job opportunities. Because if you don't do that, we will have the current situation that we have now, that we churn out many students with a degree, but then there are not many opportunities. So for the students that are thinking about studying right now, the 4th industrial revolution, which is all about digital-based working, digital-based learning, if you work in a field that is going to be able to take you forward on the digital platform, then you are already at an advantage. You already have those opportunities. So I would really like to encourage our students to do more research, go to the universities, call up the universities. We have many help resources for you to understand what programs are being offered and does that program suit you.
My naam is Alison van Wyk van Aanwil gemeente Kimberley. Ek is 'n professionele verpleegkundige, afgelope 33 jaar al en so 15 jaar al in die intensiewe sorgeenheid. Om daar te werk het jy nodig die algemene verpleegkundige opleiding van 4 jaar en dan 1 jaar se opleiding in die intensiewe sorg. Ek het besluit om 'n verpleegster te word omdat dit vir my 'n salaris aanbied en selfs 'n opleiding. Na matriek het ek vele aansoeke gedoen by die verskillende departemente en die gesondheidsdepartement was die eerste departement wat geantwoord het op 'n werk. Ek het toe besluit om aansoek te doen en ek was suksesvol om die 4 jaar kursus te doen. Wie my gemotiveer het was my ouma en my broer. Hulle was te oortuigend, maar tog het ek 'n sukses daarvan gemaak na 33 jaar. Die beste van my werk is as my pasiënt se gesondheid verbeter. As ons vir daardie dag ook in 'n lewens kon red. En as ek kon sien dat ons pasiënte genees, as ons kon lewens red vir die dag, en dat ek as 'n verpleegster my doelwitte nagekom het. Soms het ons nie net daardie funksies as om 'n verpleegster op te tree nie, maar 'n ander rol ook, soos as om as 'n moeder op te tree vir familie en kinders, as 'n social worker, as 'n beraader, en soms het jy nodig om 'n gebed te sê vir die pasiënt wat ons nie kan niks doen nie, en die pasiënt is so weerloos en so afhanklik van ons af.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ashton Mafaro, and I am a member of the Homeville congregation in Kimberley, and I am a student at the University of the Free State, currently studying LLB, that's a Bachelor in Laws, and I'm doing my 4th year. Well, I think it was inevitable, first of all. I come from a long line of family members who's always been in the justice field. So I have family members in the military and in the police. So I think subconsciously I've always been set in a very disciplinarian path. However, I've always been, like from a young age, I've always been somebody that has a strong desire or a strong will to do what is right. And most importantly, to help people who don't have the tools or the necessary resources to help themselves. So entering into this degree, fusing my love for helping people out with the desire to always strive for justice and, be basically a peacekeeper, fusing those two together, I think fueled me to choose this career path. This is always a tricky question. So I think the hardest part, let me start there. The most difficult part of this is definitely having to choose between what I feel is morally correct and what I have to do in order to satisfy my career objectives. So if it is, for example, making decisions that are in line with the law that I know is most probably going to be contrary to what I was raised to believe as a Christian, or contrary to what I was raised to believe as a young woman, or even just a simple member of society. I have to put my personal feelings aside, my personal beliefs and objectives aside, and do what my career or my job requires me to do. So oftentimes we are faced in the industry, we are faced with questionable characters and questionable situations that ordinary lay people don't have to put up with. So once that happens, I need to decide, or I need to have the necessary emotional intelligence to know that I am not a reflection of my career. I'm not a reflection of the decisions that I make when I help clients or when I help a situation or I provide advice that might be contrary to my beliefs. However, I'm merely an instrument of what I'm doing, and my job is my passion. So I think basically that has been the hardest thing that I had to fight, just drawing the difference between what I feel like my model should be and simply putting bread on the table. And then the best part I think has been being able to, like I said, help people who don't have the necessary tools or instruments or resources to help themselves, in the sense that, coming from a very rural community, crime is inevitable, drugs is inevitable. We are populated with this. So when people do face injustices in these aspects, it becomes difficult for them to have access to the courts, to have access to proper legal advice, or not necessarily in the criminal sphere, but in civil sphere as well, in dispute resolutions. People don't have the resources to actually physically go to a lawyer, or get the appropriate legal advice. So from somebody that is a student, I'm at that point in my studies or in my academics that I can give simple advice to people for free, and being able to help people and to set their minds at ease is honestly, so far has honestly been the best part of it. I think every student can agree that student life is hard, especially if you're far from home. But I think financial challenges, first of all, was the most difficult for me. Struggling with funding and stuff like that to secure bursaries and things has been a great challenge. The sacrifices in that part was me having to cut off a lot of things that a normal 22-year-old would have enjoyed. So I wouldn't have the privileges of enjoying the leisure of life because I had more responsibility. I always had to be financially savvy. I always had to think about, or I had to prioritize the important things first. I had to make sure that I have a balanced meal to eat every night. Every day I had money to get by, money for books, accommodation, and so forth. So finances posed a big challenge. And then just, I think ultimately not being swallowed into academic life, or not succumbing to the academic pressure, I think was a challenge. I needed to make sure that my spiritual health, my mental health, as well as obviously my physical health was strong so that I could keep on going through the academic pressures, which as a law student, any law student knows that it's not easy. So you need to be able to bring that balance. So I think that for me was the most difficult challenge also. So back then I can say it was harder than what it is now. As sad and as tragic as the coronavirus pandemic is, I think it brought a lot of relief to many students, because we are now in that space where everything is online. And luckily, our church is part of the fourth industrial revolution, where everything is virtual now as well. So it has made things a lot easier now for me to be able to have the pleasure of not having to go anywhere. I can sit at home and I can tune in on my laptop and I can watch the service, or I can do my schoolwork from the comfort of my home. I don't really have to do much. I have more time to juggle. Being working as well, being an intern, that actually brought more discipline and more structure, because now I had to make sure that by 7 o'clock I walked in at work. At 7 o'clock I was on the job, and every free hour I needed the discipline to say, okay, during my lunchtime or when it's quiet at the office, I need to at least tackle a unit or so. And once I got home, I only had 2 hours to rest and push for the night, up until 11, and then do my schoolwork. However, I must say, before that, before we had this freedom, this virtual freedom, juggling between my personal life, my church life, and obviously work life or academic life was hard. For students currently in Matric, I think this is what I would have wanted to hear back then. I think maybe Matric is too late, or you should know this by grade 10 already, but know what you want for yourself, know in what path you would like to study or in what path you would go or you would wish to go, know what your strong suits are and cater to that. Everybody who goes to varsity is smart. So get that mindset, get that out of your mind of you aren't good enough to be here, you aren't talented enough. Get all that negative energy, those negative thoughts or pressures that society might give you. Exams are coming up. I need to do good. I need to be the smartest of the bunch to make it in varsity. No, once you do get accepted, everybody knows you're in varsity because you are smart. What is going to put you aside from the next person? What makes a successful varsity student is your endurance. It's the ability to work harder than the next person. So once you get there, it's the decision is yours. You need to push, you need to endure, you need to make room for disappointment all the time. Make room for disappointment and tell yourself it's not about how many times you fall down, because best believe you are going to fall down. There are going to be times where you're going to fail or you're going to disappoint yourself. But what is going to set you aside is your ability to get back up, dust yourself off, and keep on moving.
Good afternoon. I am Sister Pauline Kulin. I currently attend the Albertains Hof congregation of the New Apostolic Church here in Kimberley. I studied law at UWC, which is the University of the Western Cape, whereafter I then did 2 years of articles with the Legal Aid Board. I'm also a qualified or admitted attorney. I then went on to becoming a prosecutor with the National Prosecuting Authority. I was both a prosecutor for the district court as well as the regional court for the sexual offences court for the past 12 years. I'm currently a magistrate or presiding officer for the Kimberley and Galeshewe districts for the past 4 years. The reason why I chose this career is during the time that I was at school was during the apartheid era, and a lot of the injustices that were suffered at the hands during that time had actually inspired me to choose a law degree or to choose to study law. It had suffered a lot of scrutiny because of my career choice, both from the church as well as from my family. The best part of my job is obviously knowing that I'm helping somebody. During the course of being a presiding officer, you preside over matters both civil, criminal, as well as children's court and maintenance, which means that if you've been able to make a difference in the life of a child or somebody that is coming to get maintenance for their children, that basically is the best part of the job. The hardest part of the job is the public scrutiny that you suffer at the hands of the people who are not necessarily satisfied with your decisions that you make. You are also to undergo very high integrity. You have to be impartial, which means that you basically have to prevent yourself from doing a lot of things. There are a lot of things you cannot participate in. And for that reason, it becomes a very hard part of your job because you can't even socialize. The challenges that I faced during the time that I studied was the fact that I was coming from a very small city, which is Kimberley, and I had to relocate to the Western Cape. I had lived very far from campus, which meant that I had to travel by public transport, which I was not used to in Kimberley, as we never needed to take a taxi anywhere. If you needed to go somewhere, you just walked. Unfortunately, while I was studying, I had to take 2 taxis and 2 trains just to get to varsity every day and wake up at the crack of dawn to do so. So those were hard challenges. It was also difficult being away from my family, being away from my support structure, being away from all the things that I actually knew and was used to. So those were hard challenges that you had to deal with during the time of studying. I must also admit that because of the fact that I studied during the time when our country had moved over from the old constitution into a newly elected government in 1994, there was lots of riots and boycotts that took place at the campus itself, which also suspended a lot of classes. You ended up having to try and get as much of your studying done and as much as the coursework underway in order to make it through that specific year. How to prioritize between your family as well as your social life and your church life. It is a bit of a juggle, but the one thing that I can note, because of the position that I currently hold, I don't really have much of a social life, which is a sacrifice that I've had to make just upholding this position. Because of the fact that you have to uphold a high level of integrity and be impartial, there's a lot of places you can't go to. There's a lot of people you can't see or meet with or fraternize with. So basically, your family becomes the nucleus The family becomes the one person or the one part of your life which you focus on. Your church life, the like as well. Because my family belongs to the church as well, it means that my community is with them and my church life. And that is basically the two priorities in my life at the moment. My advice that I have for any students who are embarking on a career in law or any other career path, note that there is no time limit that is allocated to you as to when you are to achieve something, when you are to do something, at what age you are supposed to do certain things. Everything happens when it is supposed to happen, and the experiences that you gain throughout this time basically hones you into the perfect candidate for your career one day. The one thing I can tell you is that during my studies at the University of the Western Cape, not once did I miss a church service. I went to all my youth activities. I even participated in recording choirs in the Western Cape. So I always made my faith a priority in my life. And for that reason, all honor and glory to God for the successes that I've achieved. That is my advice to you.
My name is Sharnay Snyman. I'm in the Orendalsrus congregation in the Free State. I obtained my BCom accounting degree while studying at the Northwest University in Potchefstroom. I grew up with my grandparents, and from a young age I assisted them with their financial matters. This is where the finance world became more interesting for me because I felt motivated and grew a passion in order to assist other people where they lack the necessary financial knowledge. I would say the most challenging part for me while I was studying is the massive quantity and workload you have to work through and all the information you need to memorize and process in order to qualify as a professional accountant. I mean, every accountant knows there's a lot of information you need to process and memorize in order for you to obtain and successfully obtain a BCom accounting degree. And I would say the biggest sacrifice for me while I was studying was me time, sleep time, and free time. I mean, you have to put in a long hours, late nights to study in order to work through all those massive information and also to stay focused during classes. I mean, if you're not focused and you don't understand something, you will get behind. And in university, in classes, in this degree, if you get behind, it's hard to keep up. I think the best part of every job is to see a smile on a satisfied client's face. But for us as accountants, it's the balancing of accounts. You can ask any accountant if something balances, you're very excited because everything is just correct. And for me personally is to build a relationship with your client. I mean, like in instance, for me, if a client phones and, hello, can I please speak to Sharnay? I mean, you feel proud. I mean, your work is up to date. Your work is up to standard. They, how do you say it? They feel relaxed and they know they can rely on you as a person in order to help them with their financial matters, financial statements, and everything like that. And with a little bit of good, there's always a little bit of bad. I would say the hardest part of my job is to keep up with SARS deadlines. I mean, there's strict deadlines regarding BATs, pay-as-you-earn statements, income taxes that need to be submitted, and to stay up to track and up to date with the changing laws, the regulations, and the standards in order to assist your clients regarding their financial matters, but also to stay in line with the law and not breaking that fine line of the law. I think time management is very difficult for everyone, but you learn day by day how to adjust to time constraints. I mean, it's like learning how to walk. At first, you wouldn't know how to do it, but as you learn day by day how to take the next step, at the end of the day, it's just a piece of cake. I mean, it's built into your system. It comes naturally. Let me say it like that. Time management comes naturally. And from my personal experience as well, is to never force anything, because God's time is not our time, and don't force open a door if it's meant to be closed, because there's a bigger reason why that door is being closed. I mean, you won't understand it now, but in time will tell. Time that always tells. My advice would be is to never doubt in yourself. Don't let anyone bring you down. I mean, if you have a set goal in life and you have dreams, go for it. I mean, yeah, sometimes you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot, but it's not the failure at the end of the day that counts. It's the success you obtained while failing. I mean, failure is just another stepping stone in order for you to succeed your dreams and your goals. And for me, I was a person that compared myself with the person next to me. I mean, you're going to go crazy, and that's not how you have to live. That's not how you're supposed to live your life. I've heard from a friend, and that opened a lot of doors for me, is to never compare yourself with the person next to you. Why do you want to do that? You have to compare yourself to the person you were yesterday, to strive and to be a better version of yourself you were the day before. And yeah, just follow your dreams. Don't let anyone bring you down. If you have a vision in life, make it your mission to obtain that vision. Yes, and that's my message for you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Inge Veres and I attend Postmasburg congregation in the Northern Cape. I am a chartered accountant. I have the following qualifications. I have a B accounting degree, a B accounting honors degree. I passed my first board exam, my second board exam. I survived 3 long years of articles to become a CA. And I have an additional qualification called a postgraduate certificate in education. I chose this career because I was very good at numbers. I was good in mathematics and accounting. And I'm a very analytical person. What motivated me to choose this career is the fact that at the age of 17, I've never met a CA in my life. I wanted to become the first chartered accountant in my family and in my community. And after an 8-year-long sacrifice, I achieved that goal. The hardest part of my job is definitely the fact that I start my day with a checklist and I end my day revising that checklist and adding additional stuff to it. The workload is quite hectic. Yeah, it's insane. The best part of my job is the fact that my job is very output driven. So whatever you put in, you'll get out. And it's always great to see the outcome of anything you do. The biggest challenge I faced while studying was definitely staying motivated. B accounting is not an easy degree. And that's why it is so important to have a good relationship with God. He kept me going. There were a number of times where I was down and out and I would just hear this voice saying, be still and know that I'm God. And he was my biggest motivator. And without him, I can honestly say I wouldn't have made it. I asked my husband what he thinks is my priority in life. And without hesitation, he said, my family and God. A job should be fulfilling, but it shouldn't be your world. And that's why it is so important to have a good work-life balance. I asked him to number these 4 things for me, and social was at the bottom of the list. And I can honestly say, if my God and my family is not happy, then I'm not happy. So I just try to balance it out. I try to do that by when I get home, I just put my phone aside and I spend time with my family and I spend time with my God. My brother was the first grandchild from my father's side to go study. And the day he left, my grandfather told him that the moment he enters the gates of university, he needs to press pause on his life. And he needs to study, he needs to sacrifice this thing called life. And when he graduates, he can press play again. Dear future CA, you'll press pause for 7 years of your life. In my case, I pressed pause for 8 years of my life. But I promise you, when the moment you press play, it's all worth it. The world is your oyster. Good luck, and I can't wait to see you in the corporate world.
I hope you all enjoyed that wonderful presentation. If you do have any questions or would like to get any information, please do email to the address appearing right now on your screens. I hope that presentation was informative and inspiring. From me, Xolisomdukaza, have an awesome weekend. #Dare to Care.